Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I am joined by the founder of Rightly, Mr. Tom Andrews. How are you today, Tom?
Well, thank yourself.
I'm very good, my friend, very good indeed. Thank you for being here, and thank you for finding a place that you can actually have internet, as I know you're having some few issues with that at the moment.
Yeah, no,
Um, I mean, I kind of have to say it now. I've put that out there. The fact that you just
yeah,
told me that your house is in a dead zone of 4G, which I find absolutely hilarious.
yeah. The only house in the road. It's
The
it's
only
it's a
house in the road.
mystery. Yeah,
Maybe if someone's listened to this and they have like a 4G connection or something or company, they can hook you up, but who knows? Anyway, let's jump straight into this. And I guess the best way to start off is just getting an overview from you of what Rightly does and who you serve.
sure. So we are focused for serving the consumers, and it's for people that are curious, interested about who's got their data in terms of companies, what data they've got, what they're doing with it, and then to be able to change anything that they're not quite happy with. So transparency and just awareness of what's going on, and then doing something about it if you're not particularly happy with how things are. That's where we are at the moment, and heading towards this and finding solutions for things that you probably didn't realize this could help in your life, either taking pains away or making good things happen.
Amazing. And I always like to ask, but what was going on in your world that made you go, this is now the time to start Rightly. This is what I want to do. This is that moment I take the leap, because that moment that people take the leap is often one that has been in the works for a very long time and always has a good story.
So this is a good one. So I've always had lots of ideas of things like, oh, that could be a good business.
Hmm.
And I've always sort of tinkered with them. And probably because I had one foot in the career path, they never really got going. And I was working on something else at the time when the light bulb for this hit. And one thing I've been very fortunate with in life is I've never cultivated friends that are yes men. And so, I mean, it's almost completely the opposite. There's my friends would delight in telling me something was a terrible idea. And then when I mentioned this one to them, they were like, I'd buy that. And it wasn't even just that's a good idea. It was like, I'd buy that.
Mm.
And then and I guess when you're thinking of what kind of sign are you looking for, I'm not from a risk seeking background at all. And get very uncomfortable with it. And I guess what kind of sign do you need to do that? And so that's when I dropped the other thing completely and just went 2 feet into this.
Amazing. What do you think it was about the idea that made the no people go, yeah, I'll have that. I'll buy that.
I think it was a combination of, yeah, this is a problem that is increasing, but not at a level of maturity of the problem that other
Hmm.
sort of solutions do exist. It's an emerging problem. The people is gaining awareness of what's causing it, and I can also see how you could why now, why the changes in legislation would enable something like us to exist.
And in that very refreshing moment, I guess, when your friend said yes, you were probably taken aback in your seat and maybe asked the question a couple of times. But after that moment, what was next? Because I wonder if on some level you were expecting them to say no, and then that no would have gone, okay, yeah, that's just another idea that's going to be
Yeah,
shelved.
yeah,
But now they've
100%.
said
It's
yes. That's a big accountability that you've got your no people to say yes.
well, because now you look like the person that said, "Well, we said it was a good idea. Why aren't you doing it?" Yeah, exactly.
You say you do all the ones that we say are no, and the ones that we say are yes, you don't do. So what
Exactly.
was
Yeah.
next?
So the next, I'm not motivated by things that just benefit me, and I learned that and tried to fight it for a long time in my life, and so this was sort of 3 4 years ago. So late 20s, early 30s, and so wanted to work with people. So looked for, I guess, a starting team, founding team to go with. And quickly found people that were sort of volunteering quite quickly to be engaged with this. And so the initials, I guess, the first 5 6 people came on board pretty quickly and in a relatively organic way. And I guess once that started happening, then I've got almost, when it's just you, you can kick the can down the road forever and no one knows you haven't delivered.
Yeah.
And you just get that horrible guilt at night. So all you have to do is sleep.
That you
somehow.
wake up in cold sweats.
Yeah, exactly. And but then starting having other people on board that were getting engaged and seeing their enthusiasm was a real motivating thing for me. And now I'm back in my comfort zone, which is someone needs something from me and I know what that is, and you just start facilitating and providing it. And that's when things really started to speed up. And I think it felt quite natural to find someone that could do something that I better than I could. And for a lot of the skill sets, like sort of design product stuff, horrible. Not even my parents kept my artwork from school. I mean, it was
not
awful.
even a Tom age 5 on the fridge. That's going straight in the bin.
Shredder. Not even no evidence.
Not even a shredder. They just burnt it. They just burnt everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like no.
So,
that's a real clear indication that you know your strengths and you know where your weaknesses in the business, which I think a lot of people and founders especially, that's often what we struggle with most. We hear sort of two sides of the story. We hear either that they completely love the delegation and they love that side of finding that team and getting that right fit. But then we also hear the other side of where they go, well, actually, I wanted to do everything. It was a real struggle for me to sort of give up that side of the business. But for you, it sounds like you were definitely in plot A, where you were like, I can't do the design. I'm going to get someone in for that. How did it?
Yeah.
How was it forming that team? You mentioned that they kind of formed organically and voluntarily, but for you as stepping into this new business and this new role, obviously you're also stepping into that leadership style, that leadership role in terms of building that team around you.
So I've always found that, and I think I've read it in some of the books I've read, and this is on the fiction side when they've got these sort of band of people. It's quite a common theme which the author has to explain why the leader of a group is the weakest one of the group, and is not the specialist at any particular task. And I guess it felt quite comforting then, because that was, at least I wasn't, when you're looking at this is like, hang on, this guy knows operations far better than I could. Why am I telling him what to do?
Yeah.
And you're not telling him how to do it. You're telling him where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And that's provide clarity of vision and unity of direction, and then let them figure out how to do it. And so yeah, it was not a. I have had, I guess, outside of my professional life, like leadership roles with sort of teams and clubs and stuff like that before, but not massively in professional world. So that came to that quite raw and not knowing, and I feel like I do have a genuine empathy for. And I guess which manifests itself as didn't like saying no to people early on, which is a huge problem. So yeah, being a leader of people who, I guess, if we'd met in a more established company, would have been 2 or 3 levels above me, was daunting. But I guess the underlying thing is almost the other way around, is that they've joined this despite knowing that.
Okay.
And so almost these are sharp cookies. These are people that know their stuff, and yet they're still on board.
Yeah.
So I can self-doubt myself as much as I want. And I've now got 4 or 5 data points to say, no, you're all right. So
and that self-doubt and that sort of reluctance to say no is a topic in itself, I feel. But do you still get that? Do you still get the self-doubt? Do you still get the reluctance to say no, or have you now sort of got into the swing of a new routine or a new mind?
So I think the reluctance to say no, I've got a one thing I do, which is
electric shock collar.
it's not so much. I guess it is when you realise that you've said yes to something which you can't actually do properly, that feeling manifests itself pretty strongly. And so afterwards is when I asked the question of, do I want to attend something? And almost or can we or shall we? Those were the trigger words for me.
Mm.
I form my answer in my head and make sure that I do not leave that conversation without expressing that. And you can be subtle about it, and you try and in fairness, I think a lot of times when people say yes when they mean no, but they end up saying yes, actually now timing is wrong is probably the better answer, and it's
Yeah.
a more honest one to them and you, because it's and yeah, you've got to be very, very focused. And typically the reason they're talking to you is there's some overlap with what you're doing, but not probably quite that much.
Mm.
And actually you're very, very focused. You don't have the resources to sort of be all wide and wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
So and yeah, and just focusing on what you want. And if it's not there, let them know there isn't an overlap in that, but there could be in the future.
Mm.
So
And what about the
that's
self-doubt then? The self-doubt in the sense of, in the early days for any business owner,
it's
self-doubt is
horrible.
often, it's up there with the worst feelings in the world. And I guess this kind of comes back to that network around you as well, isn't it? That support network.
It it does. I found it very helpful to when you are in moments of self doubt. I guess it's self doubt it shows itself in very different ways across many areas of your life. Your self confidence is the other way around for it. And a slight sidetrack anecdote. I do remember someone asked a guy from Ski Patrol, which is the people that maintain the mountains and keep them safe, said, what would it take for you to believe that snow over there is not going to become an avalanche? And he said, 200 ski-doos going over it. And it's almost the level of evidence that you need to not have that any doubt at all, you're never, ever going to get. Okay. So you will always have this self-doubt, and it's always going to be there. So expect it, manage it, and find a better way of measuring what should I be looking for to make it's ultimately self-doubt is either stop or go.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you don't go with doubt or stop when you're with confidence.
Yeah.
And so I rephrased the question internally as basically my kind of rule is I will do this until I have a very strong reason not to. And so what's happened to the self-doubt is it's narrowed in scope a lot, and the kind of the super doom and gloom of, is this all a complete waste of time, money, is everything going to fail, to I now have very specific areas that I'm concerned about, worried about, and because it's in a more niche area, you can find someone that is a very, very specialist in that field.
Yeah.
And if they say, yes, this can work, or yes, or don't point out the bottleneck that you as a layman in that field have thought of, then you're probably okay.
How do you think that's affected rightly then? How do you affect in a positive way? Because I think that's a fantastic way of looking at self-doubt, and the avalanche analogy is a perfect one because it also makes logical sense.
Yeah. And again, it's given tough one that. So I think it's given us the incremental steps. So obviously, when you're stepping out into the unknown and doing something very new, no one really cares about the first few steps that you make. So you build up this pattern of build something, it works, someone uses it, notices it, talks about it, whichever, and that kind of, even at a small scale, that would happen, gets interest. Then seeing sort of those first few steps working, and that almost that positive loop of I did something, the reaction that I got was intended or slightly better than intended, therefore I sort of know what I'm talking about, maybe. And then that positive loop builds a lot of confidence in the team. And then so when it does actually come up to the slightly further down the line, when people go, hang on, what's this? That you can walk into the room confidently, whether that's complete false confidence, it's still confidence.
Yeah.
And when the bigger challenges come on, you haven't taken your first punch for the first time. So
It, it sounds, when we take any context out of this, it
Yeah,
sounds so like dark and dingy sometimes, doesn't it? But I feel like it is the truth of like founders' entrepreneurial mindset in terms of what we go through on a daily basis, and a lot of this is internal thoughts, isn't it? It's a lot of it's internal thoughts and figuring out how to externally walk this in the right way, I guess is how we can say it.
yeah,
But you know,
no,
you're 2 years into the Rightly story, the Rightly journey, uh,
yeah,
which is fantastic news in itself. If we look at other companies that perhaps aren't so fortunate that you guys are still here, you still growing and still going strong. But
yeah.
what inspires you now? What inspires you the most in sort of the current day within the business?
So I guess there's two main sources of, I guess, inspiration, and so I get nagged a lot by by people close to me, but not in the company, for put your phone away. And you get that a lot, and it's just relax. And it's like, I can't relax unless I know that no one needs me.
Mm.
And the only way I can do that is to check if they're sending a message to me. So I guess what motivates me is seeing the buzz in the team, and almost the reaction of people when people are like, almost the pride they go, I built this, I did this, we
Yeah.
got these results, it's great. And just seeing that genuine joy and happiness. And the other part, which I guess is almost the emotional kind of, this is why I built this company, is some of the sort of the feedback we got from users of some pretty serious life impacting issues that they got help with.
Amazing.
Obviously, we ignore the negative ones, but it's the
Yeah, yeah,
I
all the
guess
good ones.
it's yeah,
But
yeah, it's
but that I
what we're
mean, it's
talking about. Yeah,
that is
yeah.
true. What we kind of do that in life anyway. But how does it feel for you when you get that kind of feedback? Because obviously, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, this was an idea. This was just
Yeah,
a glimmer of thought in your head, and now you're getting, feedback like that sort of makes you go, oh wow, how does it feel?
yeah. This is a I've always been the person that likes to be useful. So yeah, learn to cook primarily so I could get invited to parties. Really, it's I mean it's a
What's your
guaranteed
signature
invite.
dish?
Oh, signature chocolate souffle.
Oh,
But
nice, nice. I'll
there's
invite you around.
there's that one's always a, everyone loves that one. The but and so just seeing people, being able to help people almost at scale and going after problems that are big enough, and it's been a aim of mine since I was a kid, and realized that I didn't have the aptitude to be a doctor. Wanted to help people at scale and demonstrate that you can do a business, but you don't have to be a crook. You can actually
Hmm.
build something up, and I guess our aim is to almost make it such that doing the right thing is a better outcome commercially than being a shady, dodgy dealer in the world of data.
Yeah.
And because yeah, it's very tough, and so obviously demonstrating that has been a big drive, and a big seeing positive steps towards getting
Mm.
there has been really, really, really
What's the
awesome
hardest
feeling.
part of demonstrating that though? What's the hardest part of getting the message across in that right manner to bring on those
So
right users?
so it's been very much, I think, as in many aspects of business and product development, people that love building products often run into the so what question.
Hmm.
And and the challenge that we had in our particular area is data rights. People realized there was a problem, but didn't understand the subject matter well enough to figure out what their solution could be. And so we had the option of either going and first educating everyone. I think we'd run out of resources pretty quickly starting that one. And as soon as you mention,
If
hey,
you,
did you realize as a citizen of you can, you're covered by these rights? I mean, half the audience fall asleep. And as soon as
yeah,
you get to the word data
if you
protection,
try and
oh,
help everyone, you end up helping nearly no one.
yeah. And that is the crossing the chasm classic, is you just need to, yeah, get some wind under your belt from helping solve big problems early on. And because your product, unless you've got super good development budget, or then you're just not going to have a product that right off the bat people are like, yeah, I love this. I mean, it's genuinely when they say it's embarrassing putting out, yeah, it is, but it's still useful. And or at least people will think it's useful if it did work. And that's a good way to measure how big is the problem that people care about, not necessarily how well do you solve it. So we took the route of almost the message was the so what. Do you want to get this? Almost we figured out how you get that. So don't worry about it. All you need to do is this, and this, and then you're done. And this is the outcome you're going to get. You can go, and if you want to read more about it, here's where you can read more about it. But for most people, they don't, and they just want to go, yes, I want this benefit, or let's stop that happening.
Exactly. People buy benefits, not features.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the really interesting parts of just sales in general. If we sort of backtrack a little bit in this conversation, I guess, in terms of the growth of Rightly, and you mentioned before we went live that in terms of investment and that side of raising money, you did it in what was the word you used? Interesting or unusual?
It's certainly unconventional.
Unconventional
and
way.
I guess it's probably worth talking to
legal,
mainly,
I hope, but unconventional.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I guess as someone that did the pounding of the streets, cold emailing, and nil replies aspect of this,
the soul destroying part.
Yeah, it is, and it's the soul destroying, and I'm also not building the business at the same time.
Yeah.
Feeling,
but you still justify that time, right? You still justify the fact that actually, even though I'm had a soul destroying day, I'm still going to try and do it again tomorrow because this is something we need to get to where we want to go. Which is where you see so many people fall into that trap. They end up trying to raise money and it takes them 12, 18 months just to get a few good conversations.
Yeah, no, and I guess it is having been through this process. It's when you sit down with other founders and they're saying like, "Oh, we want to raise at this valuation," and you're looking at them as like, "Yeah, this could be worth that much," but without this money, it ain't getting there.
Exactly.
And so our the way we've finally raised. So my dad was an accountant his entire life, and he was the auditor of a CFO to a company that the management team didn't found, but joined in when it was turned it around and then exited. And he was the person that said, look, can you give him an hour of your time, because you're the only person I know that could really help sort of turn his pitch into something investable. So it was only literally it's the ask for advice, get money aspect, but we were there just to find out what to do. And the alarm bell sign, which I should have read differently at the time, was a week later he chased me. And you're like, hang on, this guy this is it's quite refreshing.
Is this normal? What's happened?
Yeah, so I should have realized that the interest was there at the time. And the thing that was very different about this time, and I'm happy to go into all the sort of the light, I guess the interest in the structure of the deal and how it works, is that he was pointing out all the problems. I mean, you put together some 10, 12 slide deck presentation. After slide 2, the conversation has gone that basically the rest of your deck is pointless because you've missed something very fundamental. But then also said, okay, let's have a session next week and we'll start talking to solutions of this. And he, so it was recognizing this was going to be someone that was a hands-on, high integrity individual, that that understood what it took to grow a business, build one, and also the full end-to-end experience, but also that wasn't just saying I think this is a good idea and they'll make it succeed. It was and I will bring a lot of value to this, and I know how to. So it was the nature of the individual that was great about it, and it's there's two of them, the lead investor and a co-investor, and basically the concept of the deal was whatever the plan is that you think takes to grow this business, we will keep funding all the way along, And if it gets to larger and larger numbers, then we can pick up. It depends how far down my phone book I need to go. And so it's not you never need to raise again, but
We'll figure it out, basically.
it's you're not, I guess, constantly fundraising, because you're not doing this. You're not buying 18-month runway, and then 2/3 of your life is actually running a business, and a third of it is just
which allows
fundraising.
your time to be focused and doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, and you don't need to try and keep making a deck or anything like this in version 3, 3, 4, 5, 12. Yeah.
Even though from it sounds like, you know, him chasing you didn't quite catch on to what that meant, which is quite amusing.
Yeah.
But when you did, and when those conversations did start happening, obviously that sounds like the ideal fit for a lot of people in terms of investors. And I always tell founders that when they're looking for investment, it's like you need to have an investor profile. You need to figure out who you want involved in your business, how do you want them to be in, you know, all these sort of different situations that come up. Did you already go through that, or was this just a sort of a seamless going as it went along? You went, actually, no, this is going to be really valuable for me.
So the area of his industry expertise, which was healthcare, was not a natural fit. So I guess that's possibly why I didn't really consider it as an overlap. Turns out he's put his hand into many areas and worked out quite well in those. So he also sold his company twice. The people that bought it the first time put them back in charge of it and gave them all the shares back.
As you do.
So you're just thinking, okay, that's, again, hadn't even heard of that as an option.
Yeah.
And so I sat through a presentation about someone that helps with exits, and saying about 1/3 of the valuation is based on what you've actually built, and then 2/3 of it is based on timing, on loads of other factors. And so, that's when you work those backwards, the someone that can help with the other 2/3 of that deal is worth a lot more of that percent. Your equity, if you're caring about the exit price, that turns quite a lot more.
Yeah.
So, and I guess it was, as mentioned, not super motivated for just myself. I want to feel fairly rewarded and not screwed over and valued. But I do see that as this is the best chance of helping my baby fly, and I owe it to that for that. And so
and I guess that in itself is a conversation that you must have had with yourself many times over the course of that decision, if we come back to the self-doubt and that kind of stuff. And it's so great that obviously you did it, you like took the step, you said yes.
No, that was super liberating. And even then you did have a few things that so when the offer like comes through, like, we'll do this, you're like, yes. And then you go, oh no, have I done this wrong? And you do have that.
The yes, but.
Yeah. And which is generally the sign of a good deal. Because if I'm thinking yes, then I've probably missed something. If I'm up against someone with that level of experience, then I've missed something. Because I think there's both sides have red lines of where they wouldn't go below or above or whichever in generally in any deal. And there's a lot of grey area in between. And I knew that when I was that outmatched in terms of negotiating and experience and nous in this area, it was okay. I'll lose my arm once, but then he's doing the negotiations for all the rest of it. So, and I think a lot of people try to squeeze down equity for valuation, but having an investor that is on one end of the spectrum, I've seen people looking to get the first set of founding in for 10%. That's someone that also then feels like they only earn 10% of this business. So the upside risk for any additional investment becomes pretty poor for them.
Yeah.
But actually, and again, instead of ask for less, but then you need to raise faster. Well, what you then do is just say, okay, well, this is the plan that we're trying, the long-term plan. So I'm not asking for an 18-month run, we're asking for a 36, 54-month runway. But these are the milestones, and we'll keep hitting them. I know that, and you know that in the last 3 or 4 years of that plan, even after the first 6 months, it's gone out the window. And when we hit next year's targets last month. it was,
Amazing.
and so obviously, yeah, there goes the effort we put into that, um, which is a lovely problem to have. But then you're back to, okay, what does this look like?
Yeah.
And so it makes it a lot easier. You de-risk it for the investor; they're not in for the huge amounts right
Mm.
from the start. And to be honest, their money sitting in your bank account is a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's it de-risks it for them, makes you a lot more easier to say yes to at no cost to you. Because if you can't, you're not going to be spending 200 grand a month off your first month.
Yeah.
So, and if you
If
can't
you are,
make
you're
those
doing something
positive
awfully
steps,
wrong.
yeah,
There's
it's
we talk about red flags. That is definitely would have been one
yeah,
of them. But I love the fact that you've ended up with what sounds like an amazing investor relationship, someone that really buys into you and the brand, and the fact that you're not falling into that trap, almost a trendy trap as well, of every 3 months, every 6 months being like, right, we're raising money again,
yeah,
which sometimes I see people do that all the time. I'm like, well, you need to maybe rethink your strategy. You maybe need to rethink some things.
yeah.
But for you now, I mean, what's next? You talk about it being ahead of target. So what's next
Yeah.
for you? What's next for Rightly? What's next on the agenda?
So I think so. We've gone from to get the initial users on board. We found sort of the pain points that people of wanting to like almost a do you have this problem?
Yeah.
If you do, this could help you find a solution. And so what's next is initially then converting this to almost a rather than a dashboard where you're trying to sort of find the solution of where you're like almost a menu, but more than a
Hmm.
dashboard of what you could do to turn it into about you, and so you can almost understand everything. This becomes more about a picture of you,
Yeah.
and make it a lot more personal. So that's sort of from a product side, and then I guess the sort of partnerships that we're looking for. Typically, there aren't many businesses out there that just use data as their final goal. They then need to then do or drive something else, and so it would be much more natural for us to work better with organizations that have a wider consumer base or that relationship, and we can offer a side of services to them,
Yeah.
which they wouldn't. And it'd be wrong for us to be offering what they do, and it would be weird for them, quite hard for them to build what we do. So there's quite a natural synergy there. So that's the exciting bits for next.
Very exciting. I mean, I love this story. I love the fact of what you're doing, and you seem like a very on it founder, a very genuine founder, which is great to see. And I guess my final question is, Tom, is how do
Yep.
people find out more about you? How do people find out more about Rightly? The fun question for some.
Sure. So find out more about me. I'd love to have my books out next week, but it's no. Drop. Feel free to email me at tom@rightly. I'll answer anyone, and I help out. Having been helped out by people that help me out, I will always reciprocate. In terms of finding more about Rightly, we've got quite a good content team for the website. They keep that updated quite a lot. And I guess I guess given some of the stuff that's coming up isn't cemented in yet, I don't want to give too much away, but it's certainly an exciting sort of watch this space.
Watch this space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tom, listen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your sharing. And Rightly is definitely one of those companies that I will enjoy watching grow to the next stages. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone else for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.